Hey y'all, and welcome back to Flick Connection. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about 10 totally badass movies that are highly underrated and they're completely free to watch right here on YouTube. Yeah. As usual, there's a full list down in the top pinned comment, but unlike usual, I included the YouTube link so you can start watching these movies right away. Thanks to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video, but let's begin with my bottom pick on this list of 10 movies with the underrated Robert Duvall flick, A Night in Old Mexico. Now, this is a slow-paced movie. It's about as slowly paced as Robert Duvall himself is at this age, but he teams up with his estranged grandson to cross the border, go into Mexico for one last night of living like a bachelor and, you know, everything that entails. But obviously things don't go swimmingly. They pick up some hitchhikers on the way down there that are just no good, and it ends up having kind of a crime twist. Now, like I said, it's fairly slow paced. In fact, I would even call this movie laid back. Don't expect a tense crime thriller, even though those crime elements are in there. I would say if you're a big fan of Robert Duvall, and especially people my age and older, I think you can find a lot to enjoy with this movie, but it's a laid back flick. My next pick is also highly underrated, despite the fact that it stars Anthony Hopkins, one of the greatest actors of all time, and Ryan Gosling, one of the better actors of his generation, in Fracture.
Shots fired.
Hostage situation.
Your wife, is she here?
I shot her.
You shot your wife?
I got the gun. I shot her in the head.
Now, this is a crime drama. Anthony Hopkins plays a wealthy man who shoots his wife in cold blood, turns himself in, and then reveals that there's a lot more to this case. Ryan Gosling actually plays his lawyer. Rosamund Pike's got a great role in this. And it's from the same director as Primal Fear with Richard Gere and Edward Norton, another great courtroom legal drama that's just really tense and mysterious. Fracture fits into the same genre. Wouldn't say it's quite as good, but it's pretty damn close. Believe it or not, I think Guy Ritchie's interpretation of King Arthur was highly underrated. Now, part of it is because he made it into this huge, big budget fantasy movie. For one, that's just not the type of thing Guy Ritchie typically does, and two, it's not the type of thing you expect to see when you go see a movie titled King Arthur. But with the right expectations, I think you can really enjoy this movie. I mean, especially for metal fans, the movie itself, it's a little bit neutered because it's PG-13, but aside from that, the whole thing is just metal as hell. From the very opening sequence, the production design's amazing. I mean, you know the story already, and honestly, I don't even think he tells the King Arthur story that well, but all of the creative ideas around it, all of the embellishments and the flavor added to it, I do think is really interesting and fun to watch. But for just a badass medieval fantasy movie, this version of King Arthur really hits all of those notes. It's pretty awesome. Again, if you go into it with the right expectations. But next up, I've got a fantasy flick that is also one of the final films Heath Ledger ever starred in, The Brothers Grimm. In this movie, he and Matt Damon play the Brothers Grimm. And the story itself actually explores a lot of the Grimm fairy tales. They're all sort of mashed up into this Terry Gilliam fantasy flick. And I'll say this is one of the last really good movies Terry Gilliam did. He went down some kind of bizarre rabbit hole where he's kind of lost his mind and his movies have kind of lost their way. I still enjoy some of the movies he's made after this one, but this is his last real, crowd pleaser of a movie. And that's really the only thing that holds this thing back. It's a little bit too safe for a Terry Gilliam flick, I think. But still, amazing production design, really great sort of mashup of those Grimm fairy tales, Monica Bellucci, and again, just amazing sort of style and production. It's Terry Gilliam at his best in terms of style, not necessarily at his best in terms of entertainment. But speaking of great directors, my next pick comes from one of my all-time favorites, but it's also his first film, and I know a lot of people have not seen this one because it's very difficult to find. I rarely see it available on streaming. Right now, YouTube has Michael Mann's The Keep available for free. Now, this is a movie from 1983, and while The cut that they have on YouTube is pretty good. It's kind of like a VHS rip, but like the best that VHS like ever looked. It's not bad. But this is also like a mysterious, dark fantasy type movie, almost a horror movie. At least at times. I think if you go into this expecting horror, you're probably going to be disappointed. But this would actually make an interesting Halloween watch. You follow a group of Nazis essentially raiding this small village, yet the small village has like a secret. They've got this big temple that is actually much bigger than it actually looks, and there's something very, let's just say sinister for the sake of this review, inside. You kind of get into it within about the first 20 minutes, and it ends up being a wild one. And it's got that Michael Mann mood. Now, as his first movie, he's not the director that he would become. This isn't a perfect film, but it's got an original soundtrack from Tangerine Dream, and just again, that quintessential Michael Mann 1980s moodiness, especially if you enjoyed Manhunter, another Michael Mann movie I recommended last month. If you got into that one, check out The Keep. It's an interesting watch. Now, I love this movie theater setup. I watch a ton of movies in here, but my second favorite place to watch movies is actually laying in bed, and I want to thank today's sponsor, Helix Sleep, for sending me the best mattress I've ever owned. Helix Sleep has premium mattresses that are customized to fit your needs, and they're shipped directly to your door. If you've ever been mattress shopping, you know it's kind of impossible. You lay on the different mattresses and they all feel relatively the same, and it's impossible to tell what they're gonna feel like at home, which is why getting one delivered for a trial period is such a great idea. You actually get to sleep on it. Helix's sleep quiz actually matches you with the perfect mattress. It's based on your body type and your sleep preferences, and they deliver it right to your door with free shipping in the US. It comes rolled up in a box, it's easy to set up. I was laying on top of mine in less than 10 minutes. And they give you a 100-night sleep trial to ensure that you love it. The quiz that my wife and I filled out paired us up with the Helix Midnight, which again, I am loving. It actually solves one of the bigger problems I've had with mattresses over the years. I like a soft feeling mattress, but a saggy soft mattress is gonna give you back problems. You need firmness and support, and that's what I'm experiencing with my Helix. When you lay down, it's cushiony, it's soft, it's very inviting. My wife couldn't get over it the first couple of nights, but it's firm underneath that, and I feel like my entire body's supported. It's kind of the best of both worlds. For a limited time, my viewers can visit helixsleep.com/flickconnection to get 20% off your Helix mattress. And Helix mattresses actually come with a 10-year warranty. They offer financing options and flexible payment plans. And all you gotta do to save 20% off is use my link or just visit helixsleep.com/flickconnection. It's a great deal on a product I love, but speaking of stuff I love, let's get back to the movies on this list. Now, I actually thought the sequel to Sicario was excellent. Now, I don't think it's as good as the original. The original is actually just a really solid story and film by a really incredible director. And typically, when you take a movie like that and then do a sequel like this, that is much more action-packed, it ends up just being kind of like drivel. But this movie is fairly intense. In fact, it's one of the more intense movies Benicio del Toro has done later in his career. Josh Brolin is fantastic in this as well, and it is a truly like hardcore badass flick. The story's badass, the characters are tough as hell. I mean, it goes a bit over the top in terms of the action, but just so, like just enough to keep it really entertaining without losing you. Again, I think story-wise, it's not nearly as strong or as compelling of a story as the original movie, but again, as a smaller story that just has a ton of raw action packed into it, the sequel here is successful. Believe it or not, I've got another Guy Ritchie movie on this list. I think one of his more badass flicks. I'm honestly surprised it's free on YouTube right now because it's one of his newer movies, Wrath of Man.
You know who the f*** I am?
Yeah, I know exactly who you are, and that's why you're here. So I can see it's gonna be a long night. Let's get started. Bag him.
Now this is one I know people skipped because, you know, Jason Statham, he's driving armored trucks as they're getting knocked over and he's shooting the bad guys. It seems like a movie you've seen Jason Statham do before, or at least it seems like it's another typical Jason Statham flick, and it is not. The synopsis makes it seem like it is, but the twist in this movie is really cool. I don't want to spoil it, but once it kicks in, this actually turns into a legit Guy Ritchie gangster movie, and again, it is one of the more like hard-edged gangster movies he's ever done. There's very few jokes in this. It's got a pretty intense story. Not too intense, this isn't one to be scared to watch. In fact, it does have a fair amount of action, but the action in this movie comes late. It comes after all the gangster stuff, and it's really just the icing on the cake. I'll also say Scott Eastwood is fantastic in this movie. He's been in a bunch of stuff over the years, and I think he gets kind of lost in the background, but he stands out in this movie in a way that, again, I just wasn't expecting. But we will dial the clock way back to the 90s for my next pick, another one just in time for Halloween. A movie I know a lot of people saw, but probably forgot how solid The Faculty actually is.
I think something's taking over our school.
Now, I think a lot of people forget this is also from director Robert Rodriguez, who did Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado. And that's fair enough. It doesn't really feel like a Robert Rodriguez movie, but it is just as fun as anything that he's made. I mean, you've got a bunch of high school students that are finding out that school has been invaded by aliens. The movie's got an incredible cast. I mean, people you just would not expect to see in a movie like this, and they all have at least one good scene. The movie's filled with practical effects and really just a bunch of fun surprises. It's one of those great horror movies that you're gonna jump out of your seat during and be kind of frightened throughout, but then, you know, it's not gonna horrify you for days afterwards. It's just solid fun. And then one of the slickest movies I think Mel Gibson has ever starred in is Payback.
There's a man in my office with a gun who says he's going to kill me if the outfit doesn't pay him $130,000.
70,000. It's 70.
In this movie, he plays a guy named Porter, but it's actually based on the Parker series of books. Lee Marvin played this character in the movie Point Blank. Jason Statham actually played him in a movie titled Parker with Jennifer Lopez, but Payback is kind of the coolest of the movies. It's got this desaturated, almost Sin City vibe. The dialogue is cheesy, but in a fun, kind of electric way. And Mel Gibson has a lot of fun with the character as well. I think that's why I like this one and why it kind of has become a bit of a cult classic. I know I count these movies as being underrated, but Payback does have a pretty strong following. But my number one pick on this list is a movie that I know a lot of people either missed or just have not seen in forever because it's rarely available to stream anywhere. It's free on YouTube right now. The 13th Warrior. This is based on the book Eaters of the Dead, written by Michael Crichton, who's most famous for writing Jurassic Park, and actually a whole host of hit books that would become movies, but Eaters of the Dead is a loose interpretation of Beowulf, and maybe a more realistic interpretation of the story of Beowulf, and it's not in really any way fantastical. But the 13th Warrior stars Antonio Banderas as a warrior sent in to hunt down this kind of mysterious creature that comes down out of the mountain. And it is a stunning movie. And this movie's kind of special. It was co-directed by Michael Crichton and John McTiernan, possibly the most successful action movie director of all time. McTiernan did the original Die Hard and Predator and The Last Action Hero, and The 13th Warrior, again, is a stunning period piece with plenty of badassery to go around. And I really think it's awesome that this is available for free on YouTube right now, which is why it's my number one pick. Do not forget to check out that top pinned comment. All of the links are available there, but keep in mind, these movies will not be free on YouTube forever. That's why you want to click the subscribe button, maybe even the bell icon. That way you get notified when I put these videos out and you don't miss the movies before they're gone. And thanks again to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this video and sending me that mattress. I am loving my new mattress. Go check out their link if you want to get in on some of that action, but I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special YouTube list, and you will see me on the next one.